Hi there, it's Gina from McGuire, and I'm thankful you're here today. So I'm covering two topics today in this video. One is a fun, simple, bold masking technique that prevents you from having to color in complicated images. And I'm also going to talk with you about how I've been doing my color combination selection lately. I get a lot of questions about that, so I thought I would share some tools with you that I find helpful. So you'll notice that all of these cards have a similar scene. They use the same stamp set, but I change them up by the colors I use. The stamp set that I'm focusing on is a new set for STAMPtemeber over at Simon Says Stamp. It's a collaboration with Hero Arts. This is one of those stamp sets that once it sells out, it's gone for good. I saw this and I just thought it was such a warm and fuzzy kind of stamp set that could be used in many ways. It's a feel-good set. So I'm going to change it up for different seasons today. But let's start by doing our basic stamping that will work for all of the cards. I'm using my MISTI stamping tool because it's very helpful in making multiple cards, but you could definitely use an acrylic block. I've also kind of stamped out a rough draft here. You'll notice my images are overlapped. That's okay. I'm going to do masking. This was just my guide to kind of plan things out, which is always helpful to do. I want the park bench to be in the front, like closest to my face. So I want to stamp that first and mask that first. So I put a 1 next to it. Behind that, well, I'll need the ground. I want the ground to be next, so I have a 2 next to that. I just find this helpful in figuring out what order to go. Behind that, I have this big tree, and then I also have a smaller tree that I end up changing later on, so I don't actually use that. So really, we'll end up just having 3 masks: the bench, the ground, and the tree. And you'll see me do all these things. Okay, so I'm starting with the bench. I actually want to stamp it a little bit lower on my cardstock. So I'm just lining it up here, and I will close the door on my MISTI. And now my bench is pretty much where I want it to be positioned on all of my cards. All of my card pieces here are just panels of white cardstock that are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I stamped probably 10 panels, and I change them up a little bit at the end, but most of them are basically the same. They all do have this park bench. So I stamped the park bench in the same place on all of the panels. Once I was done with that, I needed a piece of masking paper. Now, Gina has wonderful masking paper. It is reusable because it's got kind of a coating on the top, so you can use it over and over it and ink it over and over again and stamp on it over and over, and it won't bleed through, and you can reuse it many times. Now I just need a little park bench here. I cut a bigger piece than needed, but I stamped that on there, and then I can cut that out and put that over my park bench that I've stamped on my panel. This will allow me to stamp the ground, which is the thing I want to be right behind it. That will allow me to stamp the ground over the park bench without making an overlapped mess. It'll give a nice clean look. So I have my guide here. I could use it to help me line it up, but I can really just eyeball it from looking at my guide. I want my ground to kind of go around along the top of the park bench. So I'll place that in there, and now because my mask is on my bench, I can go ahead and stamp this. I like to use tweezers to remove the mask. Then I can add it to my next panel and stamp on that, and do this for all of these. I find that the masking magic holds up very well also for the stickiness that you need to do multiple masked cards. There are other forms of masking papers out there. By all means, you can use them. I'm just making a lot of cards, so that's why I reach for the masking magic, because it's more durable. You can also take regular masking paper, stamp your image, and then put a piece of clear tape over it, and then cut it out. And that makes it a little more durable too, but I find this to be easier. Okay, next I need to create a mask for the ground, and I really only need over there on the left where the tree will be. So I stamp that on a little scrap of masking paper, and I'll cut right along the curved line. Next, I'll line up my tree where I want it positioned, and I'll stamp that. Then I can take off the masking paper easily with some tweezers and move it onto the next panel and stamp them all. Now on half of my panels, I decided to stamp like the tree top around the tree. I left half of them unstamped so they look like winter and fall trees. I'll add leaves to the fall scenes and no leaves at all on our tree for the winter scenes. So I'll use this here for half of them for the summer and spring. I kind of wanted to do different color combinations for the 4 seasons, just to show how you can really change up one stamp set simply by using different colors. Originally in my guide, that little practice run that I did earlier, I had a second tree that was smaller in the back, but I changed my mind and decided to instead use this lamp post for all of my panels. Sometimes I just do a guide to get me started, to kind of get me motivated and going, and I just veer from it as needed. I also stamped little flowers on some of the panels that I'll use for spring and summer, and a little guy on a bike or a girl on a bike in the background that I'll use for my summer cards. So most of this park scene is consistent through all the different cards I'll be showing you. I changed a few of the little stamp images, but the basic design is the same on all. The last thing we need to do before adding color is to create masks for the main elements on our card. So I have the ground, the lamppost, which I only have to cut out the light part of, the tree trunk, and the tree top. So I stamped those on masking paper. I used a light gray ink, but you could use any ink you want. And then I'll cut along the outer edge. That way I'll have masks that I can put over our scenes and reuse over and over again, so we can add bold color around our images. I could have colored my scene using markers or whatever, but I don't always like to color and I wasn't feeling like coloring at the moment, so instead I thought it'd be fun to do some bold, unique backgrounds with fun color combinations to change up the feel of the card. Now, I honestly struggle with color combinations. I seem to always go back to the same things that work for me, but I really wanted to start trying new things. So a few weeks ago, I purchased the color catalog. There's a volume 1 and a volume 2, and I have found this to be so much fun to use. It's an interactive catalog of colors. You can have it on your computer, you can have it on your iPhone, you can have it on your iPad. You could print it if you wanted to. But what's nice is you can search by keyword, colors, and collections. I have other sources that I've gone to for color combos, but they're always in different places. It's nice to have them all together, and it's been a time saver for me. So I just thought I'd share it with you. I do on my blog share some other ideas for finding color combinations, so you can check that out if you're interested. Now, what I did for this card is I wanted a summer feel. So I searched summer in the color catalog and I saw this, and I thought that was a fun color combination. Sometimes I don't actually stick to the exact colors they share, but again, it's like a starting point. It gets me motivated, gets me going, and I can change things if I want to as I go. So I grabbed a few Tim Holtz Distress Oxide inks that are in that color palette. I have Squeezed Lemonade, Wild Honey, Carved Pumpkin, Broken China, and Tumbled Glass. You could use absolutely any inks you want for this, but I decided to use Oxides because they blend well. I'm also using a Pink and Main mini blending brush. These are fantastic for getting into small areas, and I use that for almost all the cards today. I work sometimes on a Waffle Flower media mat. This is nice for doing blending on because it's white. It kind of holds your paper still. So I'm taking my mask that we cut for the ground and I'll place it right on top. I don't need a mask for the bench because this ground mask covers that up. I then will put down my tree mask, the tree top mask, and the little light. Again, you don't have to cut out the whole post. You just need to cover up that light. Now you could do a fun ink blend here, which I do a lot for my backgrounds, but I thought it'd be fun to do something a little more bold and have some diagonal stripes of unique colors in the background. So I cut a strip of Masking Magic and I'm putting that down to block off this triangle area on the right. You could definitely use masking tape for this if you prefer, but I find that I can use both edges of this Masking Magic piece and use it over and over. So first I applied Sweet Lemonade, and then we can wipe off the excess, which I always recommend doing. Take that extra color off your tape so that when you go to another color, you don't blend them together or cause one color to go in an area you don't want. So all you need to do is wipe it with a dry cloth. Then you can peel off the masking piece and move it to the next area you want, and now I have another piece to cover up the yellow that we've already done. In this area, I'll apply Wild Honey, which is a beautiful tangerine yellow color, and I'll add that into that small area. Now, I could have measured out how wide each stripe would be, but I thought it'd be fun to just kind of make it up as I go. So some stripes are bigger than others and some are smaller. So there, we'll move this next edge. Then we'll use this one and move that up to cover up what we've already inked. So I'm basically inching my way from one corner to the other corner of our background. If you're someone who struggles with blending, you can always do a striped background like this. You could use more typical sky colors, maybe do stripes of different blues if you want, but I thought it'd be fun to go with some bold color combinations today based on some of the inspiration that I found in that color catalog. Okay, the last thing I need here is to fill up all that space on the top corner with some tumbled glass. I did apply this ink pretty heavy in my case. I just like to put down a thick layer of color, but you can make it softer if you prefer. I chose to use Oxide inks once again because they blend so well. It's a huge time saver for me. And now for the best part, I use my tweezers to pick off each of the pieces of the mask. It's very easy to peel it up and they kind of stay connected. And there we have our first panel done. And I can reuse those masks in my next one, which you'll see me do. Next, I am using a Pink and Main square die. It's from a layering die set. And I'm just kind of framing the area that I want to cut. I'm using my Gemini Junior die cut machine, but any die cut machine would work. And then I'll just run that through, and then we have a framed piece. I think that's a fun color combination. I wanted to have a little definition on the edge, so I'm putting glue on the back of this square and putting it very close to the corner of a piece of black cardstock. I like to get super close so it's just like a thin black frame. I then cut close along the two other edges, and now we have our frame, and I can add some birds to the sky. So I saved the birds till last because I didn't know how much I was going to trim the background down. Now I know a perfect spot there in the top right corner for 3 little birds, and I actually added a few more flowers to the ground below too. For a sentiment, I used the new Pink and Main Sunny Greetings stamp set. This is a large set with beautiful images and lots of great sentiments. So I thought the sentiment that says, "Thoughts of you brighten my day," would be nice for this bright summery type of card. I'll use some of the other messages later in this video. So I added our square to the top of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card and stamped the greeting directly below it. I didn't add any embellishments to this. I thought clean and simple would be best, and it really keeps the focus on the color, which kind of sets the mood of the card. It's a nice, cheerful, summery card, and I'm going to change those colors for the other cards to get a different feel. I like that color combination so much, though, I went ahead and made a second of it. This is a little bit of a different design, and the sentiment on this one is from the Hero Arts Park Scene stamp set that all the other images are from. Now, since I really am not ready to let go of summer quite yet, I decided to do another summer feel card. So I went to the color catalog, did a little search. I wanted something sunshiny, and I found this one, and I thought it was great. Now, I didn't end up using the gray, but that's okay. I have my black and white, and I feel like it balances out the yellows and oranges. Okay, I have another panel here. It's another one that has the flowers and bike on it, so it's good for a summer scene. I put down my mask for the ground, the tree, and the lamp, and now I'm starting to create rays kind of coming out of the sunshine colors. So I just put the 2 pieces of masking paper to meet up at the ground right by the lamp, and I started to apply color. Remember, always use a dry cloth to wipe off your masking paper so you don't accidentally get some color in your next section that you don't want. In this case, it doesn't really matter because I'm using all oranges and yellows. The colors I had used on this card are Squeeze Lemonade, Wild Honey, and Carved Pumpkin. And I just alternated, and I even overlapped some colors. I felt like the Wild Honey was too close to the Carved Pumpkin, so I added some extra Squeeze Lemonade on top to soften it. So I continued to move my large pieces of masking paper around to ink up the entire sky here. Now I can just remove my little masking pieces so you can see how bright white it stays underneath. Now I die cut this one with a circle. I thought that would be fun with the rays. So I die cut it with a circle and matted it with a black die cut circle. I glued it to the top of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card. I want this little sentiment to curve along the bottom. So I mount it in the position I want, and I try to curve it on the door of my MISTI, and I check it to see if it's a match, if it's a right curve to go right along that circle. Once I'm happy with its position, I can ink it up with black ink and stamp the sentiment. I think it's fun to do a little curve like that instead of just having it straight there. It really fits nicely with the circle. Okay, I added a few little birds in the sky on this one, and that's it, a very simple card design. I think it would be fun to spray like a gold glitter spray on those rays before I remove the mask. So that's another thing that you can do to add a little interest. If you have anywhere your masking failed, all you need to do is go in with a white gel pen. No one would ever know. So you can fix up those places that overlap that shouldn't. Okay, now it's time for some spring combinations. For this one, I looked in the color catalog and I thought this one with purples and greens was a perfect fit. Feels like Easter to me. This time I wanted to have horizontal stripes. So after I put on my mask, I taped my panel down onto my grid straight. So I could use the grid lines in the back to make sure these pieces of masking paper I put down are straight across the card. So I put my first one down and I applied some wilted violet. Wipe all of that off. Now I'll take this off and I will move it up, and notice again I'm using the grid lines to help me make sure they're straight. Now I did switch the pieces of masking paper I used to create these stripes simply because it was getting a little messy for the video, but you could continue to use the same ones over and over. The color I use there is Seedless Preserves, so then I'll move that up, and this time I'll do some Mowed Lawn. Now at this point I was wishing I would have done a lighter application of color, so it'd be a softer spring card, but I went bold and I think it ended up working in the end. But keep in mind, when you use a good blending brush like this, you can do a soft application. In fact, here I wanted a lighter green, so I used Mowed Lawn again, but I put it down softer. I then did go and add a little bit of Twisted Citron on top. But you can apply a softer amount of color using the same color combination inspiration. Okay, the last one here is just Twisted Citron to finish off the top of the sky. And for me, always my favorite part of masking is the big reveal where you take off the mask and you see the crisp white underneath. For sentiment on this card, I used the Trinity Stamps Sentiment for Almost Everything set. This is one of those that has every occasion included, and I really like the message that says sending many blessings your way. So I trimmed down our inked panel, put a black cardstock mat behind it, and added it to a white note card. And then there on the bottom, I stamped sending many blessings your way. And I also added some black birds stamped in the sky. So there you can see this is a pretty bold spring color combination, very different than our last ones. Here's another spring color combination, and I did it in the same way as the one I just showed you, but this time I used Squeezed Lemonade, Wild Honey, Mowed Lawn, and a little bit of Worn Lipstick and Picked Raspberry layered. And this time I applied the color Soft, as I just mentioned you can do. I wanted to show that option also. So this is a much softer background. Again, it has that spring feel to it. Now this one was one that I had forgotten to stamp the little treetop on because I was going to use it for winter card, but I decided to change it to spring so I can just go back in and add the treetop image in. For this one, I just trimmed it down to a narrow piece and added it to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch note card and stamped Have a Beautiful Day from the same Hero Arts Park Scene stamp set. I really like this color combination in the sky, even though it's not a sky color. It's just a fun, graphic, bold look. This time, let's do a fall card. Now, I looked in the card catalog and I found this color combination. And by the way, I chose colors combinations from this that are pretty obvious for the season. There are some unique ones in there, but today I wanted to go for more obvious seasonal feels. Okay, so this time I have one of my trees that has no leaves on it, and instead I'm stamping these individual leaf clusters from the Park Scene stamp set. I stamped the leaves up by the tree and then also a pile of leaves on the ground below, so it looks like the leaves are falling for the fall season. Once I finish the stamping, we can start doing our masking. I did create new masks here just to keep it clean for the video, but I could have continued with the others. So I have my tree trunk masked down, the ground, and the lamppost. This time I wanted to do concentric circles of color in our background. So I have a piece of masking paper here and also some random circle dies. These are all from Hero Arts Circle Infinity die set, but I didn't pick consecutive ones. You can see I used some that are close together and some that are farther apart just to change up the look in the background. So after I ran that piece of masking paper through the die cut machine, starting with the solid circle and adding that towards the grass or the ground on our panel. Then I started putting all the other circles around it. So I'm just removing the release paper and placing it in place. And then we can start adding ink. For the outside edge, I used Mowed Lawn. I think next time I would use a maybe forest moss kind of color, but I was going for a bright fall combination. After wiping the mask clean, I can take my negative space and place it right around it. I apologize my head gets in the way for a lot of this, but it's the best way to make sure that you line each one up nicely. So there I did some squeezed lemonade and then decided to add a bit of wild honey on top of it. Now we can remove the next ring, and once we have that removed, we can put back in the ring we removed when we did the yellow. So we're covering up that yellow area. Now since this ink is still wet, the yellow ink we put down, our mask here doesn't want to stick to it. So that's why I'm putting a little piece of tape around the edge to hold it there. Another alternative would be to heat set your Oxide ink and then put down the mask on top of it. But I just used the extra pieces of masking tape and it was easy enough. Now we remove the next ring inside, place the ring over the orange we just inked, and go to our next color. So for this one, I did Mowed Lawn, the Wild Honey, then I did Carved Pumpkin, Candied Apple, and then in the inside I did Gathered Twigs. So there we have some bright red. Whenever using red on a mask, red likes to get all over the place, so be sure to really wipe that clean. All right, we're putting in our last ring here, and then we can put Gathered Twigs on top of that. This would be another fun one to do with sunshine colors for a sunshine background. Okay, now for the fun part, let's remove all of the masks. We'll start with the outside ones first, then we can remove our masks underneath using our little tweezers because we want to be sure to reuse them over and over again. At this point, I felt like it had way too much green. So instead of starting over, I just took a circle die and cut that down. Now you'll notice the side and the bottom are cut short. That's okay, I'll just put the circle in the bottom corner of my card. So I matted that with a black circle die cut and then glued it to the bottom of a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. Now look at, these are the same stamp set, but a completely different feel and look, thanks to the color combination and just the placement on the card. The thanks on this one is from that Pink and Main stamp set that I showed you earlier. Okay, my winter card, I used this color combination from the color catalog, and I chose this one because I rarely mix different kinds of blues together. I usually stick with pools or I stick with powder blues, but here I used several together, and that's what the color combination inspired me to do. So I just did the same technique that I've done many times here. I did Blueprint Sketch, Chip Sapphire, Salty Ocean, and Tumbled Glass for the background that you see there. And now I'm coloring over all the inked area with my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen so it's sparkly. I thought that would be a fun way to add to that snowy kind of look. I also did stamp little snowflakes coming down, just a few, and that's from a Mama Elephant Snowy Night stamp set that I used in my last video. You can see the Sending Many Blessings Your Way stamped along the bottom there, and that is from the Trinity Stamps stamp set that I showed you earlier. So there, this has a completely different feel than all the others. It definitely screams winter or a snowy scene. So this just shows you can make little changes to a scene and change the color combinations to really dictate the feel of the card. Okay, I hope this was helpful to you, just sharing my trick for where I come up with color combinations. It's always good to look for outside sources when you're kind of feeling stuck. And I hope you'll give this technique of no color masking a try. It really is fun to do and it creates some unique backgrounds. If you're interested in some other videos, they're linked here in the middle, and all of my supplies are linked in the description below, and you can find a visual supply list there too at the top if that's helpful. Thanks for spending this time with me today. We'll see you again soon and stay healthy.